Serious, teachers, what is the worst thing you've seen a student do? A different type of bad than most of these. I was a teacher at a poor inner city school. I had a lot of wonderful students but some difficult ones. One was the worst, clearly bright but was always sleeping through class and acting up and never doing homework. I lived about 30 minutes away. One night, I stopped by the local Wawa after a night out with friends. Was at least 11:30 p.m. and I was already dreading the early morning drive to school. And who should be checking me out but my own problem student? He was working late to make money for his family and then getting home at 1 a.m. or later before heading into school on 4 to 5 hours of sleep. He was a smart kid. Really smart. I hope things worked out for him, but I can't help but wonder what would have happened if he'd been allowed to have a childhood and focus on his education. It gets very hot here in the warmer months, and so the school put out those big containers for water for everyone. Well, one student was caught peeing into a bag and dumping it into the containers. Early years educator specializing in children with SEN, special educational needs. Eating faces. No competition. Seeing a child chewing their own shit is something that stays with you. Having to try and hook it all out of their mouth with your finger whilst they bite you is something you forcibly forget. Children with complex sensory issues, particularly those with hyposensitivity to smell and taste, will often seek out particularly strong smells and tastes, and things that we find disgusting are not to them and instead are stimulating. Combined with the delays to their development, which means they are still likely to be at the stage of exploration where everything is tested in the mouth, this can obviously lead to situations that are very unpleasant to us. Edited to add clarity and further explanation. Stab another student in the back of the head with a pencil. Went in right at the base of the skull. Luckily it didn't hit anything important and just needed 3 stitches. But it was deep enough that it stayed in before the doctors took it out. There was a loud pop and a flash in the back corner of the classroom. I asked the student sitting there what happened. She said it was firecrackers. I sent her to the office. While she was still in the office, I realized the electrical outlets in the room didn't work. At that point, another student fessed up that the student sent to the office had put a pair of scissors in the outlet. I'm not sure why that student thought it was better to lie and claim she was doing fireworks inside the school. When I was teaching preschool, I had a little girl, between 3 to 4, walk up to another girl who was sitting on the rug reading a book, grab her by the hair and slam her head into the wall. They hadn't been interacting in any way prior. When I asked her why she did it, she said she wanted her to know it hurts. I was talking to a kid about Pokemon one day during their lunchtime. I'm the band director and a lot of band kids come to the band room for lunch. We were having a good time. He's a great tuba player and I tell him I can't wait to see him tomorrow. He took a rope and hung himself in the last period of the day by kicking a desk out from under him. Luckily the teacher he was with was able to somehow get to him, but I ran down in time hearing the screaming and was in time to see him hanging there as others tried to support him enough to keep him from dying. Kid was gotten down, but that was awful. It's so hard to tell sometimes even when you're right there with them right before they try it. I walked in on a sexual assault between 2 students. Still bothers me like 8 years later. A student shot and killed another student on a teacher work day across the street from our high school. I have a list. 1. The kid who would mutilate herself if you told her she couldn't leave the room. Now you had to let her get out for first aid. Kid had major issues and was in foster care. 2. The kids that would threaten to accuse a teacher of indecency to get rid of him. They were caught by being overheard in the locker room while they were planning. 3. The first grader so violent he left permanent scars on staff, and the SPED department refused to change his educational setting. He punched me for tying his shoes wrong. 4. The POS that raped a blind girl while a substitute sat in an office not doing anything. 5. The freshman that put a senior through a glass window and broke his nose because the senior wouldn't stop bouncing a ball off of the back of the freshman's head. My wife is an elementary teacher and has a kid this year that likes to slip under their desk and lick toes. We live in a warm state, and they all think he will grow up to be a creeper. I was teaching for 3 months in a terrible inner-city school in London, UK. Terrible, because the school's management was super ridiculous and refused protecting or standing up for their teachers. I quit after 3 months. At the end of the first term, the school begged me to stay and promised me a pay increase. Here are some highlights. 1. A female 15-year-old student pulled out a used tampon from her vagina during class, and chucked it on my colleague's, female, face, telling her to fucking shut up. 2. A 16-year-old female student spat on my face while calling me a fucking poof. The school's head teacher put her on detention for an hour as punishment while the student was laughing at me saying, "You see? All I got is a free lesson, now fuck off." The school refused to suspend her and let me know that if I call the police to charge her with assault they will support the student and refuse to acknowledge the attack, to protect the school's reputation. 3. A male student smeared his feces on a huge wall in the boys' toilet, writing shit with it. 4. A group of 6 to 7 students 16 to 17 years old surrounded a male colleague, pushing him from one to another, took his glasses, very high prescription, rendering him practically blind, breaking them, then beating him and kicking him. The school refused to investigate as he couldn't identify any of the students, he couldn't see the faces without his glasses. He quit the school the same day. This place was a nightmare. This wasn't me but my wife who used to teach deaf kids. When deaf kids get really mad and upset, they want to ignore the teacher just like anyone else. Here, they have an advantage. Deaf kids just have to close their eyes. That's it. With their eyes closed, they had no way of communicating with anyone. My wife couldn't do anything but bang on the desk. Genius. 2 boys pushed a girl down a flight of stairs. In no particular order. Masturbating in class. Pushing a pregnant teacher in the stairs. Ignite a senior school administrator office by throwing a trash bin full of lighter fluid, while trying to block the door to prevent her escape. Fake gun and Real's knives, armed robbery, we had the police arrest them inside the school. After a fish dissection, hide a fish by taping it below a desk. It was just before a 2 weeks holidays. The cleaning staff threw up when opening the class. Throwing a big firework on other students sitting in the toilet. Prostitution and drug stealing in the school bathroom. Yup, glad that I took a break from education. Not sure about grammar, sorry, French biology teacher. La sécurité de l'emploi as they say here. Yeah, tell me about it. My favorite teacher is high school was a very kind, lenient man. Do your work, be respectful, and follow the major school rules and you and him would be cool. The one thing that would seem minor, but that he was very strict about was taking any medication in any way, shape or form in his classroom. One day, I needed to take some Advil for cramps and asked to take it. He said I needed to go to the nurse for permission. I ended up asking him why he's so strict on it. It turns out, he had a student pass out in class one day at his former school. He tried to wake her up and called the nurse, but she wouldn't wake up. They called 911 and by the time they got there, she had died of an OD on narcotics she took in the bathroom that she had hidden in a Tylenol bottle. I don't know how he went back to teaching after that. Once caught a child looking up furry porn on a class iPad. That was something. Tripped a pregnant teacher on purpose. She later miscarried. My mom taught special ed. She worked with EC kids, who had emotional issues. After she died, I found this video of her and another teacher talking with a student, a boy who was about 10. The video is super disturbing. He tells them that he stabbed a woman and threw her in the river after he raped her. When asked what he had done to her during the rape, He said I took her clothes off and hurt her. You could tell that he didn't quite know what rape meant. He was persistent and spoke with an aggressive tone. He definitely didn't kill a woman. This story was made up, but it was super disturbing because you could tell that he had witnessed or experienced things that helped him come up with that story. He begged to go to jail. The realization that he would do this because jail seemed like a better place than his home. I know they notified CPS and made a police report, just in case. I don't know what happened to him after that. He definitely didn't go to jail then, but I hope CPS got him out of that home. He was so aggressive, but it was all a plot to escape from whatever went on in his home. My wife has a few. This is only one. During class, one girl was sitting with her hands in her lap shaped like a bowl. Upon further inspection, I noticed she was collecting her spit in her hands, said her name, made eye contact. She drinks it and wipes her hands on her shirt. She didn't make a move to ask to wash hands, so I sent her to. Kid threatened to rape a teacher. I taught a student who was born addicted to various drugs and at the age of 17 still had no coping mechanisms, so when he was stressed out he would lean over and fart in your face. The day he graduated I cried buckets. Brother is a teacher at a district with 1:1 technology for the students. They had parental filters on the school computers but had a lot of issues with kids abusing Dropbox. They had it installed for group projects so kids could collaborate, but it turned into a way for them to share nudes and cheat on exams and all sorts of other stuff. The weirdest one was a group of students that would take pictures of teachers bending over. They then edit faces onto the teachers' butts and upload them to a shared Dropbox folder, and it was like a weird but kind of innocent-ish meme in the high school. It pretty quickly turned into the students making fun of certain teachers and really sexualizing others. Worst. I had a student bully a kid into transferring schools, but then the bully got voted in as senior class VP. We have a kid who brought a gun, then planted a pipe bomb, and more. Still in our school. It's important to know, if teachers told specifics, we can be fired for breaking privacy laws. Like those stories above can never see the light of day and be associated back to the student. My first year of teaching high school, I was informed 2 kids in my class were suspended for conduct unbecoming. I did some digging and came to find out that at a party one of them forcefully branded the other with a hot iron cattle brand. It was like Jacka the TV show. The incident was plastered all over social media. Unbelievable the perpetrator wasn't expelled. More unbelievable, I was the only teacher who had them in class together and they were not separated. Needless to say, I was breaking up a fist fight the first day they were back on campus. Right outside my classroom. I taught college English literature and composition for 25 years until I retired a few years ago. I've caught students cheating on exams and plagiarizing quite a few times, at least a couple per semester. During every exam, I had students turn off their phones and place them on their desks face up. I always went around and checked their phones. During one exam, I had a student say she didn't have a phone. She was a single mom who had recently immigrated to the country, so it seemed reasonable that she couldn't afford a phone, and it didn't occur to me that she was lying. She asked to go to the bathroom during the exam and I let her go. While she was gone, her name popped up on the course site and I could see every resource she looked at while she was out of the classroom for about 5 minutes. I let her finish the exam, but wrote to her immediately after and included the record of everything she'd viewed during the exam from her phone, that she apparently didn't have. She claimed that she forgot she had her phone, and when she remembered she did have it, she was embarrassed to admit it, that it was in the pocket of her jeans, that she must have hit the course site when she was pulling down/pulling up her pants because it was the last thing she'd looked at online. I said I'm sorry, but I'd have to forward the evidence to the dean. She said she was going to appeal it. I replied that that was fine, it was her right to appeal. Meanwhile, the dean's office contacted me to say that this was her 3rd offense. Because it was her 3rd offense, she automatically failed the course. It was sad because she had high enough grades to pass the course before the exam, so even if she'd failed the exam, she would have passed the course. I think about her often because I admired her so much for restarting her life with a small child in a new country. She would sometimes bring her young son to class if she couldn't get a babysitter, and she was very attentive to him, and he was very well behaved and never disrupted the class. This morning one of my kiddos used the urinal as a drinking fountain, smiley face. Mentally handicapped student with ectodactyly. 3 large fingers on one hand. 2 on another. Tried to finger bang everyone. Said he would hook them. Tried to corner female students and attractive female faculty to essay them/hump them. It's a 3-way tie for me. Student 1, steal my class pet, a fish that I really loved. Claimed to flush it down the toilet. Another student said they gave it away to a kid on the street in a water bottle. Student 2, raised their hand in a fist like they were going to hit me when I was visibly pregnant to see me flinch. They repeated this gesture 3 times. I wasn't their teacher. I just asked them to stop banging on random doors and go to class. Student 3, put his finger in his throat and forced himself to throw up on my floor. I asked him why he just did that. He said to go to the nurse. Why didn't he just ask though? Why start with forcing yourself to puke on my classroom carpet? I quit teaching. The kids and their parents and the admin are raising a generation that isn't going to understand consequences. We are creating sociopaths. I also grew tired of parents screaming at me for the dumbest reasons. I didn't allow phones out in my classes, another wanted me to pay for her internet at home. And finally I was not paid enough, yet I was expected to subsidize the education system. Eat a weed nug and claim it was moldy broccoli.